Welcome to this ITpreneurs webinar, The X Factor, Emerging Trends Impacting Service Management. Technological innovations are transforming our lives and the way we do business. What does that mean for IT service management professionals? During this webinar, we will be looking at a number of them. Okay, so we can move on to the next slide because I would like to take a moment to introduce our presenter for today, Alex Hernandez. Alex is an ITIL Master and a Fellow in Service Management granted by the Prism Institute. He is currently a Senior Manager within the Service Excellence Practice at Accenture, whose mission is to improve client outcomes through the practice of service management and the ITIL service lifecycle. Alex has more than 20 years of professional experience in numerous high-end engagements involving business process transformations in the areas of organizational transformation, ISO IEC 20000, change, business continuity, incident problem, capacity management, and other ITIL process areas.
Thank you everybody for attending this session. Really appreciate it. There's some exciting trends occurring. Connie, just want to confirm you can hear me okay, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the emerging trends that we'll be discussing and their impact to service management will include context-based services, social-driven IT, converging data architectures, industrialized data services, PaaS-Enabled Agility, and Orchestrated Analytical security. So these are pretty significant trends, and in terms of the ITIL process areas, we're going to hone on specific areas that we feel will be impacted more dramatically. Now, there are probably other ITIL process areas that will also be impacted, but we're going to hone in on the ones we feel are going to be impacted the most. So on the next slide here, slide 5, you'll notice here the ITIL life cycle here. And what we did is we highlighted the key process areas we feel will be impacted the most by these emerging trends. So on the service design side, we feel that capacity, availability, service continuity, supplier, and information security management will be impacted mostly by these trends. On the service strategy side, we feel that demand management and business relationship management will be impacted. On the service design side, on the service operations side, we feel events, incident management, request fulfillment, and access management will be impacted. And then on the service transition, service asset and configuration management and knowledge management, these are the areas we feel will be impacted the most. Now, again, the other ones are likely to be impacted, but we want to hone in on those areas because we feel these emerging trends will have a pretty significant impact to these. So when we're talking about context-based services, if we talk about context-based services, the key thing to understand about context-based services is that it's a new way of the user experiences, how they deal with services, how they communicate. It really combines real-time signals from both the physical world regarding location data, where the user's at, the online activities, their social media interactions, and many other contextual inputs. Well, so what this means, it actually means, for example, if you have, for example, a technician working in an oil refinery, basically data can be made available specific to and customized on the equipment he's working on and servicing. Another example could be pharmaceutical sales rep. The data can be tailored to the context of the doctors she'll be supporting and meeting with regarding the drugs that she'll be providing to those doctors. So based on the context of the experience, the interactions can be customized to that user. And this is very powerful because it aggregates multiple sources of information from the user perspective, resulting in a more meaningful end-to-end user experience in terms of who we're servicing, what's being serviced, when and where. So these context-based services will impact service management in the following manners. So if we look at context-based services, from the service strategy side, we feel that the context-based services will require that demand management capture and orchestrate numerous sources of information beyond your typical data sources, such as databases. Now you have new forms of information, new sources of information, which includes social media such as Twitter, Facebook, location services. And this will exponentially increase the complexity of patterns of business activity. So in service strategy, when we're talking about demand management, key thing was the patterns of business activity. What is the activities that the users are performing and the profile they're performing them to understand how we can deliver services to them. So these other unstructured sources of information, such as social media, can impact those activities. So we need to keep that in mind when fulfilling demand. And this will lead to a much richer user experience. Now on the request fulfillment side, the implication there is the fulfillment of user requests through your typical IT channels will dramatically change as the user demands a dynamic and rich user experience. What that means is IT will need to understand how to proactively address a user request before the user actually even submits the request. So this would be known as predictive request fulfillment. So it's based on past user experience and interactions the users performing through social media mechanisms. And this information is valuable when captured by IT so they can more effectively, proactively understand possible future requests that the user might submit. So the next key point or disruptor that we believe will impact service management is social-driven IT. So it is predicted that leading organizations will be utilizing social platforms. In fact, many organizations are utilizing social platforms as a mechanism to manage interactions and communications with their consumers and users to achieve greater intimacy. And we will start seeing the development of enterprise social platforms. So as you can see, there are external social platforms such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Foursquare, but actually there will be internal enterprise platforms that are being established. One of those is called Yammer. So that's a way that the enterprise internally within an organization can communicate and foster communication amongst employees. So IT managers will need to start thinking more of industrializing social platforms. So social interactions need to become industrialized and repeatable, and you have to be able to capture these metrics to understand the customer interactions effectively. So another example is say the Foursquare organization, the Foursquare company. Actually, Foursquare guides real-world experiences by allowing the users to bookmark information about venues they visited and also make relevant suggestions about nearby venues. And that information becomes available to other users who want to possibly consider about visiting a restaurant. That same power can be applied internally within an organization. Another great example is there's a Canadian company, telecommunications company called TELUS. And they basically use Twitter as a way to achieve better communication and the immediate path to the user to resolve problems. So instead of calling their service desk and waiting for a human to interact with them, the actual user could actually leave a tweet. So in effect, the company was using social as an entry point into their existing business processes. And the result of this was that the customers were using Twitter and getting much faster resolution of their concerns and are much more satisfied with the telco service desk. In fact, the customer satisfaction rating for Twitter, using Twitter, was approximately 85% compared with about 70% for using the conventional contact center service desk approach. So regarding the social-driven IT impact, so these are the process areas within service management we feel will be impacted. We feel that on the service strategy side, business relationship management will be impacted because social media has opened a whole new venue of capturing customer satisfaction information in a true and effective manner. It will provide basically new ways for the BRM process to achieve greater intimacy with their customers. So the question you need to ask yourself, the social media question is no longer should ask is, what should I be posting on Facebook? But what you should be asking yourselves is, how do my customers want to interact with my services? That's a key question to ask now when it comes to business relationship management, when it comes to regarding social-driven IT. And on the service transition side, we have knowledge management. In that space, we believe that the nature of interactions is going to be changing, and these developments and successes with customer interactions will soon inspire an enterprise to rethink their collaboration knowledge management strategy. So later, these same ideas will apply across the extended enterprise among the ecosystem of suppliers, customers, partners, and other stakeholders. So in effect, these interactions will become part of your knowledge management system, your knowledge management database. And then the service desk function. So the future service desk needs to consider how to leverage social platforms to more effectively support their users by understanding their current users' social interactions and proactively responding to those interactions. For example, complaints are being submitted to Yelp instead of to you. Support forums point to how-to videos on YouTube that maybe your service desk employees don't even know exist. So when a customer tweets to you that they want to increase their insurance coverage, will you be able to respond? So this is all examples of the impact of social media. Now, if we as organizations fail to engage with the users regarding their interactions, you can actually, these potential customers, they could actually be lured away to competitors that are actually interactively using and increasing the use of these types of technology enablers and an increased way of communicating with their clients. So more ominously, they will be putting existing customer relationships at risk, and they won't be able to measure the decline of business until that has happened. So what we're stating here basically is, if organizations ignore the social-driven IT phenomenon, you could actually lose a lot of current clients or future clients or users or customers because you're not being involved in that social interaction, which is a key component in achieving customer intimacy. So the next trend, the emerging trend that we're seeing is the converging data structures here. So in this converging data structures, what we're stating here, basically you have your structured data and your unstructured data. And how we're going to bring those together. Your structured data refers to your typical databases. Unstructured data refers to data that's not organized in a structured manner, such as social media interactions. All that external data that can be brought into the organization and then interlocked with your structured data to provide a more holistic, meaningful picture of your customer. And in this convergence of data architectures, we need to start looking at data as a strategic IT asset and understand how we can maximize the value of structured data through hybridization of many forms of unstructured data. So an example of that would be utility companies are using this type of unstructured data to analyze large volumes of data from smart meters to understand how to optimize energy generation based on predictive patterns of consumption. So this goes back into how it can impact the demand management process. So what are the patterns of business activity? Again, this understanding information from unstructured data and structured data, bringing that information together will help you get a more holistic approach, understanding what those patterns of business activity are regarding consumption. So from a service management standpoint, the key areas we feel are being impacted here, again, on service strategy is the business relationship management process. We feel that data convergence can have a significant implication to the enterprise by assisting this process getting better insight into the customer by discovering the customer's needs, identifying new service directions, and more. So it can actually assist you, this unstructured data can assist you in understanding new markets that you wouldn't otherwise have identified without having this data. So just having structured data would not give you a complete picture of what's really happening out there in the market space. And on the service transition side, if you look at the knowledge management, with the implementation and convergence of data, structured data and unstructured data, there's a whole new set of possibilities and solutions becoming available in solving complex problems that could not otherwise be solved with the use of just structured data. This will result in a more powerful and robust knowledge management system that can effectively become all-encompassing of the knowledge that you need to help resolve maybe a complex problem. So this will significantly accelerate in supporting the problem management process in addition to knowledge management. And problem management is within service operations space. And then the other process area is the service asset configuration management process. So the future version of the configuration management system will need to go beyond your traditional structured data, such as your configuration management database, your other databases, and the data source feeds, to include unstructured data, a combination of both. So you can think of the configuration management system, the future system becoming a convergence management system. How do we manage both unstructured and structured data in a manner that will provide greater value to IT so they can have additional insights to better support their users? Now, the three core data architecture technology changes that are going to be impacting converging data architectures. And these three key areas include rebalancing, coexistence, and cross-pollination. So rebalancing is how can we ensure we have a good balance between structured and unstructured data, relational and non-relational data sources. It's very important to see how we can bring those all together. And in fact, it's estimated that 15 to 40% of all relational databases could be better suited for unstructured data platforms or non-relational platforms. Coexistence. So how can we have these two types of data coexist amongst each other? There's different bridge technologies out there to help manage the convergence of unstructured data and structured data. And organizations that perform extremely well at a high level, performing high levels, recognize the importance of coexistence and how to integrate these two worlds together. And then cross-pollination is really the next generation of data technologies, which is how to identify the gaps between structured data and unstructured data. And this could be used, accomplished to a limited extent by bridge technologies, but the Hadoop is a bridge technology that's making this a reality for many organizations. So if you want to learn more about Hadoop, just search on Google. It's a technology out there that can help you effectively bring unstructured data and structured data together in an effective manner. So the next emerging trend or X factor we believe is industrialized data services. And this basically means that we're looking at data management from a different perspective. So we're shifting from being application specific into a collaboration of IT and business leaders with data that can be used beyond the application that created it. So in most examples, when we have data specific to an application, but we want to look at it beyond just that specific application. How can we decouple it? So the decoupling data, there needs to be a delicate balance. How are we going to have a data constraint and data freedom? What can we do ensuring that the data is not too constrained, but at the same time we make it free enough to provide value to the organization? And then how we're going to industrialize that data and share that data to unlock the value of that data to the organization. So the data becomes a strategic asset, basically. And the focus is really going to start becoming on data responsibility from creation, consumption, sharing, and distribution. So we're going to start creating basically a data services platform, a data supply chain. And this will impact business, provide value to the data, and can also help you identify new products and services. So it's basically taking data and looking at it from a different perspective, more from a strategic standpoint to create value. And an example of a data platform is Amazon. They have basically a service-oriented model which is anchored by an agile data services architecture. And according to the chief executive, Jeff Bezos, these advances in data management within Amazon basically have allowed them to become more adaptable to respond to ideas in the market space. So the thing to keep in mind is we need to start thinking about data platforms and how we can effectively use them so we become more agile within an organization and respond more effectively, such as Amazon. They have an effective data sources platform they can use to respond more effectively to their users on Amazon.com. So from a specific impact to service management standpoint, we look at the VRM process again, service strategy. The industrialized data services will have a significant implication to the BRM by providing data services platform where the BRM process can actually combine the use of different forms of structured and unstructured data to get a better understanding of the customer's needs. So these data services will provide great value to a business relationship manager because they'll have a better understanding of their customer, and they'll also be able to use this platform to their advantage. So it becomes a strategic asset and provide value to them on how they serve their customers. And the service asset configuration management. So the future version of the configuration management system will be a subset of the industrialized data services platform. The data services platform will incorporate the best of both the unstructured and structured data, resulting in additional insights on how IT can better support their users. And in addition, how we manage the data and information, organizations need to start seriously thinking about how the data will be used and consider establishing a data services platform, which serves as an abstraction layer between data and applications. This is basically an opportunity for IT to standardize and industrialize data management. So in this model, consumption of the data is what matters, not the management of it. So how is data being consumed? We need to start thinking from that perspective. So if you're looking at your configuration management system, you really first need to understand how it's being consumed so it provides strategic value, not how you're going to manage it. So the consumption piece is very key here. The next X factor we believe will have an impact is the PaaS-Enabled Agility. So PaaS, simply put, is in the longer view, the IT agility that PaaS creates will enable not simply IT innovation. So PaaS is going to really drive this innovation. It's going to help overcome long-time IT challenges such as rigid application development, provisioning and deployment, providing agility that fundamentally lowers barriers to entry for the business. It will enable your business to test new business models, new markets, new products and strategies, and make them far more responsive than they are today. So instead of you hosting all this platform internally, you can actually now have platform as a service provided by a provider, reducing your cost substantially as an organization to try new applications, release new applications, increase that capacity dynamically. So the key to understand is when you look at this as an advantage, you understand, okay, what applications or services do we want to keep on-premise and which ones we want to have off-premise. And this is really the concept of the hybrid cloud. So you really need to ask yourselves, what makes sense from a cost perspective and delivery perspective that's going to provide value to my internal clients to keep on-premise, and what makes cost sense to have a provider provide the off-premise services that I want to basically have them manage. So that's a key balancing act that you need to understand when you're considering platform as a service. So the implications here, if we look at from a service management standpoint, on the management side, demand management or service strategy, if we look at that, now organizations will be able to dynamically meet customer demands, provide the necessary resources dynamically to effectively support identified patterns of business activity. So for example, let's say you have a special one-day retail promotion that you can have quickly, and then it would rapidly scale up, and then when demand was rising, and you can scale it down when the demand decreases. So when the holiday season is over, you can pull back that promotion without having an impact on having to buy more capacity to support that increased load. So the next piece in terms of the process within service design is capacity management. So now organizations can truly perform dynamic capacity management without investing in extensive infrastructure or development costs. So they can consume as they need. So this idea of panic buying when you run out of capacity internally will be gone because you'll be able to consume capacity as you need it. And then availability management, on that perspective, now the infrastructure can quickly be provisioned at a much lower buy-in cost to address availability issues or maintain existing availability levels as the business grows. So now you can adjust availability demands on a dynamic basis without having to expense on large amounts of hardware and software. That can be done dynamically too. And then on service continuity management, you can now quickly provision at a lower cost to provide DR recovery options, which if a company did that internally, could be pretty cost prohibitive. But now with the PaaS-Enabled Agility, that opportunity will be available to organizations. And one key area that I want to emphasize is supplier management. You really need to understand how to more effectively manage your suppliers. So organizations need to visit your approach to manage suppliers, because in a complex multi-vendor environment, there's going to be a lot of new interactions and things you need to consider on deciding what services to keep on-premise and which ones to keep off-premise in a hybrid cloud environment, and what vendors are involved in supporting that solution. So the supplier management process is going to get complex, so you need to understand how that's going to be managed in a multi-vendor environment. Okay, the next trend we're going to be talking about is orchestrated analytical security. And basically, the way we look at this is you need to look at orchestrated security as a second line of defense to mitigate damage of attacks. It's not that you're not going to get attacked. You're going to get attacked, but what are we going to do to minimize the impact of that attack? So we need to move away from the traditional approach of thinking of security about just prioritizing compliance to a new approach of managing business risks by expecting and monitoring for security compromises and reacting to them when they occur in an effective manner. So we need to start leveraging new data platforms to better detect security incidents. So orchestrated analytical security is going to be the core piece, and information security management is going to be an area impacted dramatically within source management. And in fact, it's going back to slide the key thing I want to stress here is incident response. The traditional incident response is usually after you've been compromised and you've lost data. In this approach, what we're talking about here is once the attack gets in there, what are we doing proactively to prevent that attack from compromising and damaging data? Because attacks are going to happen, but what are we doing proactively to ensure that it will not impact our value, our confidential information in the infrastructure or in our databases? So here we're looking at, there are three core issues receiving little attention regarding security, and IT leaders need to understand and familiarize themselves with the non-traditional attack surfaces. What we mean by that is we have a lot more exposure than just your typical iPhones or IP device networks, computers. We need to start looking at anything that's IP enabled on a car, for example, your power plants, your water towers. All these have technology components to them, and they are connected to advanced systems, but these legacy technology components have security weaknesses that can be compromised at this moment, and we need to start looking at how we're going to address those non-traditional attack surfaces, not just traditional attack surfaces such as your network, computer servers, your laptops, etc. Also, we need to start having a data-centric mindset. We have to leverage new data platform concepts to improve levels of protection. We also need to start thinking about in terms of orchestrated security resources. How do we bring a response team effectively to respond across systems providers, communication channels, and other relevant areas and capabilities? So we look here at the key areas being impacted. So one thing is at the management level, orchestration will involve identifying and accessing the right resources when needed and getting them to work in concert. So the Chief Information Security Officers need to detect signs of attacks in progress. They need to pull in threat data from industry security researchers to understand what's at stake, tap into pools of niche skills to solve the problem, and then work together with various infrastructure application and service providers to close the vulnerability. So they need to be very orchestrated in how they work in addressing an attack that comes into the infrastructure or to the organization. So from an information security management standpoint, orchestrated analytical security leads to a flatter security organization that does not manage policy, architecture, monitoring, incident response, and remediation from an end-to-end perspective, but focuses on selecting, guiding, and managing collaborative networks of specialty security providers. On the access management side of it, orchestrated analytical security is not just about who has access and the type of access they have, but it's about monitoring patterns of business when accessing systems. So for example, moving from monitoring what badges have access to what areas toward monitoring how often badges are used to attempt to get into areas that badge holders don't have access to. So we're actually monitoring behavior. That's the key thing regarding access management. And then regarding incident and event management, security incidents and events will happen, as we all know. The key thing is, how do we have to minimize the damage is to detect when they happen. So to deal with complex and evolving areas of threats, organizations must move from monitoring to understanding, from collection of data to visualization of behaviors and anomalies. So from this perspective, I discussed at a high level, very high level, emerging technology trends that we believe will impact service management. Again, these are context-based services, social-driven IT, converging data architectures, industrialized data services, PaaS-Enabled Agility, and Orchestrated Analytical Security. And I'll let Connie provide a polling here.
Yep.
So Connie, did you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Give it a bit more time for the poll. Okay. Interesting. Half of the attendees are looking at context-based services and social-driven IT, and the other half on the PaaS-Enabled Agility. So,
oh, excellent. So there's some those three areas are definitely new areas that possibly need to be considered down the road.
Yeah. And then, okay, the reply is coming in still. Industrialized data services also important. All right. Thank you very much.
And I'm going to the next slide now, Connie. Ready?
Yeah.
So in closing, what I want to have you take back when you're thinking about these emerging trends is ask yourself these questions. Is your organization truly providing services to users in a way they can consume? Remember, it's not about what we post on Facebook, but are we providing the right mechanism for them to interact with us? Is your organization truly tapping into other forms of data, such as unstructured data, to generate innovative solutions to tough problems? Is your organization looking at data as a platform and a strategic asset? So that way your business relationship manager role or other key functions of the organization can use data as a strategic asset to serve the user internally better. Is your organization considering social platforms to more effectively communicate with their user community, such as the Yammer platform internally, or leveraging external platforms practices internally to create a better interaction socially and dynamically within the employees within the organization? Is your organization considering PaaS in their overall cloud source strategy? And are you considering on-premise versus off-premise? And is your organization thinking of orchestrated security resources just beyond compliance? So it's not just about compliance, but it's how we mobilize and effectively address risks as they come in. So one thing to keep in mind when identifying these X factors, these are the call to actions that we recommend you follow And you want to identify an X factor that's probably the most valuable to your organization as a starting point, build a case around it, business case, get that review and approve that business case by your senior management, assess current state of the organization to identify gaps, document a set of prioritized recommendations for addressing the gaps, and then develop a roadmap to support that X factor you've identified, implement it, and monitor and improve it. So regarding the ITIL life cycles, we talked about 4 life cycles basically here. Continuous service improvement will impact all those. But this call to action is how can we implement the X factor, monitor, and improve it to provide value to our organization more effectively. So that's my discussion here. I know there's a lot of